Hi, I'm Marc and welcome to my channel Bookstagramm. We started this channel with science fiction and today I have a very great thriller for you. It's one of my absolutely favorites and it's one from a very prestigious and very informed author who unfortunately is already deceased, but he was the greatest thriller author in the 20th century from my point of view. You might disagree, but that is always some point of taste. But as I promised, I will always talk about books I read to relax after a hard day of work, and this is one of those, and I read it several times already, although it is not a very short book. It is Debt of Honor by Tom Clancy. As you can see, I hold the German version in my hand right now. The cover for the English one looks a little bit different, but since I'm back in Germany and I want to relax, I do read them in German. But I read a lot of books in English before as well. But today I want to talk about that one. I can talk about this in English even if I read it in German. The main character will probably be very familiar to you even if you haven't read any book of Tom Clancy, because you might have seen one of the movies where this character is a part of. The Hunt for Red October, Clear and Present Danger, The Patriot, and many more. Very successful movies based on the books of Tom Clancy. And the main character I'm talking about is Jack Ryan, or John Patrick Ryan, or since the Patriot Games, since the Patriot Games, he is Sir John Patrick Ryan, and he was played in the movies by very famous actors already. If it was Harrison Ford, it was Alec Baldwin, Ben Affleck, Chris Pine, and it might give you a ring that you have seen them and his character before. And in this case, John Patrick Ryan, who started as an analyst at the CIA, you might have seen the movie with Ben Affleck. There he was an analyst at the CIA, and he rose through the ranks. In the Patriot Games, he was with the CIA as well. In, I think the English title was Clear and Present Danger, he was deputy director of the CIA. And now in this book, he's National Security Advisor. And I have to say a word about the author this time. Tom Clancy had access to many organizations of the United States while he was alive. He had access to the White House, to the Pentagon, and many other ministries as well, and could see live how these ministries and administrations are working. He sometimes even acted as an advisor to the government, and he had a very profound knowledge of everything that was going on. And he kind of, well, I don't want to go too far with that word, but it's a little bit more difficult for me to say this in English than in German. The book is a little bit prophetic. He's not a prophet in the usual sense, but something happens in this book where reality copied it very closely sometime later. This book was written before September 11th in 2001. I just want to mention that one. And in this book, as usual, Tom Clancy is showing a lot of the workings in politics, in the inner circles, and in international relations. And of course, there are tensions starting, and sometimes they can start with a very minor thing, like in this case just with a fuel tank of a car, and that in the middle of a trade dispute. I'm not talking about Brexit this time, but it's a trade dispute between the USA and Japan. You might have a ring there as well. We had that once before, and that led to the attack on Pearl Harbor. And Tom Clancy is doing in this book a very fine job of using the old developments, the historical developments, to build something very new. And I'm quite glad. I mean, some of my viewers might not like this, especially from Japan, that he did not choose the typical suspects like the Taliban or Russia whatsoever, or China in this book, for the conflict that's part of the book. I really like that, and I always like that Tom Clancy is giving you a very precise, from my point of view, Japanese viewers might see that differently, but from my point of view, a very precise view on other cultures as well. Not only the American one, but also the cultures he's dealing with in his books. And he's showing in very much details how it's working in the Japanese politics and the connection between politics and economy in Japan. And I think for the time when this was written, this is quite accurate as he wrote it. And so he's showing a developing tension between Japan and the USA in this case, very much in parallel to what we saw in the 30s, in the 30s, in the 20th century. That happens. I just made a video in German before that. Shouldn't do that. My English is even worse than usual. And in the 30s of the 20th century, and he's bringing it to the present of the time when this was written in the 1990s of the last century. There's this small incident with a fuel tank. Then this develops into a kind of a trade war. And that in the end makes some people in Japan turn the whole thing into a hot war. But this time, and that's the brilliant thing about the book, not only with weapons, but only with using the financial markets. I will not go too far into the details, both of that. I don't want to spoil the book, but I have to talk about this a little bit so you will understand why I love this book that much. He's combining normal warfare with warfare on the financial market, so to speak. So if you want to find out how they're doing this and how easily it was done in this story, then you of course should read it. And it doesn't only end that way. The conflict is kind of ending at some point, but then there is a big surprise at the end left, when everyone would think, oh, well, for me the story is over. Why is there so much book left? Because there's a very big surprise in the end, and that is the part where the prophet comes in, as I called him. This is so close to something that happened later that it is really astonishing. And so I can really only suggest that you read the book yourself. I don't want to spoil that part especially, as I will have the same problem with some more books of him I will talk about in later videos, definitely. And you will really be surprised. I was surprised as hell when this happened. I really liked the way the whole book was going. It is, you might think that it must be exhausting to read this book. Once I start reading one of those books, and it's as good as this, he does have bad books, but there are several that are as good as this. Once I started, I always wish my work is over again so I can continue. And I hope his new ones, not his new ones, but the new ones that were written afterwards with his characters, because they are more Patrick Ryan or Jack Ryan books afterwards from his successors. They are here already as well behind me, and I haven't read them all yet, so I can't tell you about them yet, but I will in the future probably, if I like them. And that they are as good as those, because I can't put it down once I start reading it again. And I read this several times, and you will read it fast as well, even if it has a lot of pages. But the other nice thing about this, at least here in Germany, it's a big book, but it's not that expensive. I talked about Voyager in that point. In Germany, this is a hell of expensive just because it's Star Trek. And this one, on the regular market here in Germany, is cheaper than the Star Trek one. Just saying. But I can only suggest that you read it yourself. If you're into political thrillers, you will love that book, and it is one of his best ones. The other really good one is the one that follows on this one, but I won't spoil that now. I'll make a video on that one in a few weeks' time, I guess, and talk about that one as well, because it also had a little bit of a prophetic touch in it. I don't know how he did it that time, but it is. And by the way, I always put a comment under the videos, and for those in the EU, for example, I have one link to the book in the comments if this book is available here in English. It's a small bookshop and their website from my city, and I like to support the small shops that are around and are not from a big chain or something. And so I decided I use those links on my German channel as well, but I of course take the English book versions for you and put the link down there. And if you attempt to get the book, might be a way to use that link and support a small shop. I'm not getting paid for that, I'm just saying, but I like to support small shops. And I hope you will enjoy this book as well as I did if you read it. If you have any suggestions on books that might become my favorite future books, just leave a comment under this video and I will have a look. I probably won't be able to read all the books that you in the end will suggest, but I will have a look. And I'll see you in my next video. Bis gleich.